So what do you do when the in love feeling fades? Do you remember when it started to fade for you and Christian? Anybody who's experienced that euphoric state of love, you know it's a wonderful feeling, wonderful time in your life. And if you have not experienced that, I hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but as you know, the ones who have experienced it doesn't last forever.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Can you think of things that you do with Christian that you didn't like, but you did it because you could be with him?
I mean, I can't think of like little things. I can think of like moving across the country, not starting my doctoral program, running away and getting married.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
You know, those are big, huge life decisions.
Yes.
Like, welcome to the Daniele Hage podcast. I'm your host, Daniele Hage. Daniele is my mother-in-law and Nini to my 3 girls. She's a pastor, speaker, and founder of Dynamic Traits. She has over 40 years experience in family and marriage relationships. She's been married to Steve Hage for 43 years, who travels the world preaching the gospel, and together they pastor a church in Laguna Niguel, California. So, Nini, Danny, today we're talking about the upside and the downside of love.
Yes. All right. So this is something I had to learn early on in our marriage, and even started learning it before I got married, actually, at 18 years old. I'd never been taught this. But first of all, I did not know that love was not a feeling. Mm. I didn't know that. My husband taught me that. And when I decided that, you know, anybody who's experienced that euphoric state of love, you know, it's a wonderful feeling. Wonderful time in your life. And if you have not experienced that, I hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but as you know, the ones who have experienced it, doesn't last forever. Okay. And actually, love really has not so much to do with feelings. It starts off that way. Yeah. You know, you feel
the attraction.
You falling in love, but it becomes a decision, a choice, a behavior, a commitment. Yeah. Okay. Because you know, that feeling fades after a while. So when that feeling fades, does that mean, relationship is over, time to move on?
Right.
Because if that's how you see love, then you are going to have many, many, many relationships because you're going to be chasing that chemistry, that euphoric state of feeling. Yeah. And once it dies out with this person, okay, next. And is that what you really want for your life? You know, you're never going to be able to sustain a long-term, satisfying, healthy relationship. And if you have children, you want that. Right? You don't have lots of partners. Yeah. Especially if you have children. Okay, so I'm watching The Bachelor. Anybody ever watch The Bachelor? Just admit it. Even men watch it.
They
don't want to admit it.
We're on to the Golden Bachelor now.
Or yes, the Golden Bachelor now. But I remember hearing one time I was watching it, and I watch for research purposes because I do learn a lot from watching men and women on that show. It's hilarious. But I heard a woman say, I came here to try to fall in love. Yeah. And I kind of paused the TV and I thought, now, wait a minute. People don't try to fall in love. You don't try to fall in love. You don't know who you're going to fall in love with or when it's going to happen. Like falling in love is very spontaneous. It's not like, okay, here we go. I'm going to try to fall in love. Yeah. Because there's no effort required when you're falling in love with somebody. It's like it's completely spontaneous. It doesn't take work. That's what's so wonderful about it. Mm-hmm. It's effortless. There's no work involved. And it usually happens when you least expect it. Yeah. I know for me, it happened when I least expected it because I thought, you know, I'm only 18. I'm getting ready to go to school. I'm going to have a career. And then I meet this guy who turned out to be my husband. And at a time when I'm thinking, I am not ready for this. I still have college to go. But I did fall in love and I ended up getting married at a very young age at 19 years old. But you can't make it happen. You cannot manufacture love and chemistry with another human being. It just happens whenever it happens. So I think what that girl on that show meant is I came here to see if there is somebody in the house that I enjoy being around. Yeah. And, you know, and this is for the singles, just a little tip here. If you are on a date with somebody or hanging around with somebody and you don't like how you feel about yourself when you're with them, or you feel like you're nervous around them, you can't be yourself with them, or when you leave their presence, you feel yucky about yourself, that's a sign that this is not a match for you. Yeah. That's not the right one, because the right one will inspire the very best out of you. And being with the right person, you love who you are when you're with them.
Yeah.
You like yourself. You feel good about yourself when you're with them, which is why you can't wait to be with them again, right? But if you're leaving going, oh, they make me feel bad about myself, that's not the right person for you, just so you know. So what do you do when the in love feeling fades? Do you remember when it started to fade for you and Christian? And nobody wants to admit it, but come on. I mean, yes, we love them, but you don't feel how you felt in the very beginning.
Right.
15 years later, 12 years later, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. It was definitely after we were married. Yeah. And you just start to, because you're now living together and
really getting to know each other.
Figuring out the bathroom schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Seeing all each other's idiosyncrasies and how.
Yeah, because when you're dating, you can put on your best self for
behavior.
2 or 3 hours, until you come back home. And then when you see the ins and outs and I mean, we got pregnant right away and I was so sick. So my gosh,
that probably wasn't a fun time in your relationship.
I'm so thankful he stayed with me because that was horrible how sick I was. And, in bed the first 6 months of our marriage, because I was so sick.
Right. Well, do you remember this? Do you remember because what I've seen too is when you are in that in love state and there's that chemistry going on, and that chemistry, that's, that cocktail of dopamine and testosterone running through your body, and it puts you in that, where you just can't get enough of that person. Yeah. People that are in that state will do things that they would normally never do.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Can you think of things that you do with Christian that you didn't like, but you did it because you could be with him?
I mean, I can't think of little things. I can think of moving across the country, not starting my doctoral program, running away and getting married. Those are big, huge life decisions.
Yes.
But so thankful, but it just so out of my character. I was so in love, and saw a future with him that I was willing to just jump ship and knew that starting a life together was going to be so much better than anything I could do on my own. And looking back now, looking back 15 years, I'm like, oh my gosh, that seems like a whole nother lifetime ago. Yeah. And I can't believe I was that bold to do some of the things I did to follow him, but I just knew that life together was going to be so much better than life was taking me on my own.
And it could even be just little things like, maybe you'll go camping with the guy that you are in love with and you hate camping.
Yeah,
you'll go to movies, maybe you don't like movies, or you'll go watch sports and you don't like
So he will joke about that. He'll be like, oh, when we're dating, you went to all the movies with me. And then as soon as we got married, he's like,
you don't like movies?
I don't like movies.
I remember him saying, he used to always go to movies with me. Now she wants me to turn it down and she wants to go to bed. She won't watch movies with me. Yeah. And I died. I'm like, oh yeah. That passion's kind of faded.
Yeah. I ate popcorn, I ate cheesecake, I had all those things. I don't need any of that.
Yeah. I remember my husband he was never a sit on the beach guy. And I was a beach girl, and he would in the middle of the day pack up and go to the beach with me. And you think he does that now? No. He did all kinds of things with me that he wouldn't normally do. So that's too why you want to wait a while before you do tie the knot, because you really want to know who you are and you want to come back to yourself.
Yeah.
And when that in love state maybe has faded just a little bit, so that you can really see who you are and what you like, and your partner can see who you are and what you like.
Yeah.
So then after marriage and after you've been together for a while, there's actually 5 different ways, and many of you have probably heard of this. There's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's an old book, but it's just another tool to help couples connect. Okay. And I think it's a really good reminder. And I know I need to be reminded of it, which is why we decided to talk about it today on this podcast, because as you kind of get into your routine, and it's years now that you've been married, sometimes we forget what makes us feel loved. Yeah. And then there's becomes this disconnect in the relationship. So sometimes we have to go back and go, oh, that's right. One of the ways that I feel really loved is, okay, when I first learned about this is years ago, and I think maybe our needs change as we grow older. So maybe my love language has changed a little bit. It's not exactly what it was years ago. But I remember my husband's love language is gifts, okay? Meaning that he feels loved when he gets a gift. It doesn't have to be an expensive gift. It could be the gift of making love. It could be the gift of making him dinner. It could be the gift of allowing him his transition time when he comes home from work. And, gifts come in all different shapes and forms, right? It's kind of the universal language. Your gift makes room for you also. And that's something that out of the Bible, that when we present a gift to somebody, it opens up a space for you to be in their presence or in their field of work, possibly, or in their home, maybe. When you go to somebody's home, you bring like a gift, a candle or something when you walk over flowers or whatever. Anyway, so I remember my husband because, let me say this. A lot of times we will show love to people that we feel loved the way that we feel loved.
Yeah.
So my husband's his gifts. And so he buys me for my 30th birthday this beautiful diamond and sapphire ring. And when he gave it to me, I couldn't believe he spent the money on it. We were on a youth pastor's budget at that time. We had 3 kids. And I was kind of like, oh my God, you didn't. And to be honest, I didn't even like it that much. I'm sorry to say I didn't. He knows this now. We actually changed it into a pendant on a necklace. It looked better that way. But I just was like, you went and spent all this money on this gift and okay, thank you. And I let him, I was very appreciative. Yeah. I didn't tell him I didn't care for it. Or for years, I didn't tell him that, by the way. I was very appreciative because he was so proud of it. He had already shown my family. He'd shown all our friends. He was so excited about it. So probably the next day, our blinds, we had blinds that covered sliding glass door, and they were really dirty. And I said, can you help me clean the blinds? It's a big job. You got to take them down, take them onto the driveway, wash them down, scrub them, and then let them dry and then put them back up. It's a big job. And they were really bugging me. And he goes, yeah, of course I'll do that. I'm like, you do? You will? And he did the whole thing by himself. I was so in love with him for doing that. I was like, anything you want. That spoke so loud to me.
Yeah.
And he said, he was shocked that the response he got from him washing the blinds was what he expected when he gave me that ring.
Yeah.
And I was ready to take care of him in the bedroom. I mean, whatever you need from me, because I was so grateful that he cleaned the blinds. Yeah. So that was an act of service. And I guess at that time, that was something I really, really needed because it just spoke volumes to me. And it said something to him too, because, well, I didn't have to go buy a big expensive gift. I just have to help around the house. Yeah. And at that time, that was what said, I love you. So you have, okay, let's just talk about that first one, the acts of service as a love language. You have to figure out, and in that book, there's actually a little survey you can take to figure out which one. And we can all feel love through all 5 ways, but if you're not getting your primary love language shown to you, your tank is going to be empty.
Yeah.
You might, all the other 4 being shown, but not your primary, you're not going to feel loved.
Yeah.
But if you get your primary, then the rest of the ones are just like icing on top of the cake.
Yeah.
They're bonus points, so to speak. So acts of service at that time for me was a really big deal. And I think acts of service and words of affirmation are my love language, which I was very much, let's stick with the acts of service. Anything that you're doing to help somebody or you're just doing to maybe relieve the pressure. Yeah. It can be anything. It could be taking out the trash. It could be making the bed. It could be throwing a load of clothes in. It could be filling up my car with gas. Yeah. My husband does that all the time. I love that. Hate going to the gas station. I didn't even ask for that, by the way. He just does that because he thinks it's a man's job. I know not all men feel that way. But just anything, any little thing where you're serving somebody else. It could be getting their slippers for them or rubbing their feet, whatever. You figure out what your partner likes and you do that. Another one of my love languages is the words of affirmation. Yeah. And when I came out on the little survey and scored high there, I felt embarrassed about that. I thought, does that mean I just want to hear people to say good things about me all the time? I didn't want to tell anybody that, like, oh God. But it's not something I've noticed with me. It's not something I go looking for or I try to get people to say something nice about me. But I've noticed when someone compliments me, I light up.
Yeah.
I just noticed that about myself. And there was a girlfriend of mine the other day said something, and she was telling me something about something I had said or taught her early on that really made an impact. And she was giving me the example. And I noticed how it made me feel. And I couldn't believe how it made me feel. I was like, isn't that weird that says so much to me and makes me feel so good about myself and so good about her? And I told her, I said, you know what? I don't expect to hear that from you. But the fact that you told me that the other day on our bike ride, I can't tell you how it lifted me. It just lifted me. So once I realized what words of affirmation do for me, I'm not embarrassed about it anymore.
Yeah.
I just realized that's something that makes me feel really loved. Again, I don't search for it. I'm tell me, tell me something. But when someone does, I notice I perk up.
It fills your tank.
It fills up my tank. And that's the other thing. When you don't have your love language spoken to you, it's like you're running on empty. It's just like you can't drive a car. It's not going to work the way it's supposed to work if it doesn't have enough gas.
Right.
So that's what you're doing with your partner. You're filling up their gas tank so that you bring out the best in them.
Yeah.
And couples that say, well, I know that's what makes them feel loved, but I don't want to do it. To me, that is a problem. Like, this is the person you've committed your life to. You don't want to love them in the way that they feel loved?
You typically show love the same way that fills your tank that you receive love, right? So yours is acts of service and words of affirmation. So do you feel like it's easier for you to show love that way too?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Like I know for me, I'm super complimentary. Yeah. Like I always find ways to compliment people in how they look or something they do, or it could be anything. Yeah. And that comes very natural for me. Yeah. And I notice that a lot of people aren't complimentary. Like with my daughter, she's a blue personality, and I notice that she never notices what I have on when I go see her or whenever we're together. And I'll say to her, do you like my new outfit? I got a new top. And she'll go, oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, because you didn't say anything. She goes, I didn't even notice. It was, and we laugh about it. It's funny, but as I noticed, she is not a very complimentary. And then every now and then she does compliment me. I'm like, wow, thank you, Courtney. Wow, you complimented me. It's kind of a big deal. But again, depending on your personality styles. All right. So what's another one? So we have acts of service, words of affirmation. What is your love language?
Quality time is definitely my primary.
And what does that look like when you have quality time with your man? What's that look like?
It looks like uninterrupted ourselves, just the two of us, honestly. Like I like going out in groups and having quality time, but I like just when it's just the two of us. Face-to-face conversation, usually sharing good food. Yeah. So that's quality time. Or, coffee. We love doing coffee dates too. Yeah. And just having the time to go over our week and talk, just talk.
Right. It just fills you up. And how do you feel after you've had that time?
Good. Like I feel like I'm on cloud nine. Yeah. Like there's nothing that could there's nothing that could stop him from loving me. Like that's what I feel like. I feel like there's no doubts in my mind anymore. There's more, because sometimes my mind can just kind of race and, anyways, my mind can just kind of race and go down those it just kind of like seals everything up. For me, it just makes me feel like there's no question in my mind that he loves me and I'm the one for him. And that's how it feels for me. That is
so important. And do you guys have a hard time getting that time?
Well, he is not quality time.
What's
it's not
his love
his
language?
Primary. Acts of service or words of affirmation.
Okay.
And so he shows, he does such an amazing job of acts of service. But because it's not my primary, I've fallen into the trap sometimes of, like you said, sometimes it just doesn't register with me.
Right.
Sometimes I'll say, oh my gosh, I just need a date night and my tank is empty. Yeah. I need my bucket filled. I just don't feel, do you love me? Just asking some of those questions, like feeling very vulnerable. And he's like, yeah, I do this and this and this. And I make you coffee every morning so that when you wake up, you have a fresh pot. And I'm like, oh, yes. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. But
so you'll get
primary.
He'll show you all the other ways.
Yeah. So
and it's still not quite filling until you get that quality time.
So it'll fill my bucket, but there's little holes in it. And so he fills them up with the quality time.
That's good. That's a great way of saying it.
Kind of how I feel about it. But
okay. So and another one. So we have acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation. We talked about gifts. Another one, the last one is physical touch. Yeah. And I know a lot of ladies will say, oh, my husband, every man's,
every man says
love language is physical touch. And it doesn't necessarily just mean like sex. Mm-hmm. It could be just when you walk by him, you tap him on the knee or tap him on the shoulder. Like you just let him know, hey, love you. You're letting him know you're there.
The person who walks in the room and they give everybody a hug and
right.
make sure they physically touch everybody that they are saying hi to.
Yeah. I know I have some friends in my life and they are so touchy, and men and women. And I have to admit, I'm kind of like, okay, back off. Like that is, I guess, not my love language. Like I like sleeping in my own bed by myself. I had my granddaughter sleeping with me last night, 6-year-old, physical touch must be her love language. That girl had her legs and head and arm entwined in mine the entire night. And I'm like, I kept like pushing her over when she woke
sleeping. Up this morning and she goes, I had such a good night with Nene. She didn't push me away at all.
She was sound asleep. She didn't feel it.
You filled her tank.
Oh, and she in the middle of the night.
She made the bed for you this morning.
She made the bed. Yeah. And in the middle of the night, she goes, Nene. And she sits up. She goes, can we cuddle? I'm
Snuggle.
Like, snuggle. And so I get like where we're like spooning. I'm like, how's that? Is that good? And then she has to get her legs in between. I'm like, okay.
Her love tank is filled. Absolutely.
She's so cute. And of course, it's easy to do that with your little granddaughter. But anyway, I noticed some of my friends are just super touchy. Yeah. And I'll even say like, okay, that's enough. Can you not hang on me?
Yeah.
Like I'm more like I need my space, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't speak to me the way it does them.
What's the value though of figuring out what somebody else's love language is? To be able to speak that and to be able to give them the way, maybe it's not as comfortable for you or doesn't come as like gifts don't come as naturally to me. Words don't come as naturally to me. But when it is somebody else's primary, like what's the value in that?
Well, I would say you have to find a way to learn how to do that. Like I've heard more than one person say words of affirmation don't come naturally. Mm-hmm. And so I will tell them like, even if you have a hard time maybe saying them, if you think of if there's something that you go, oh, I like that about them, say it, write it, text it. Yeah. Put it in a card. Somehow get it out of here onto paper. And people who like words of affirmation love the written word. Yeah. I mean, that works really well.
I've noticed like cards, when I give cards and I write something in it, it just means so much.
Yes. And I had a girlfriend the other day say, I just, I see the things and I like those things, but I don't mention it. I'm like, why? And she goes, I don't know. I go, do you know how necessary that is to mention when you see something you like in your man or a friend? There's a verse in the Bible in Proverbs that says, do not withhold what is due from those who it is due. Like, don't withhold. Like, if you have a compliment and something nice to say, people need to hear how you think about them, how you see them, how you feel about them. That is really, really important. And if you know what it does for them, I think you'd be more willing. Right. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how that made you feel or the impact that had on my little words had on you. Absolutely. Like, that's a big deal. And then you feel good about yourself too. It feels good when you make someone else feel loved, right?
Yeah.
So
there's so much research to that, which is so cool. Different podcasts, but just saying something nice to somebody actually ends up impacting 25 people within 24 hours.
Really?
Just because of what it does for people's countenance. Yeah. Yes. And I recently heard like nobody is not needing a compliment. You know, everybody's needing something. So I've really learned that as a discipline, like when God puts somebody on my heart or something comes through my mind about somebody, like texting them immediately, like, you're such a good mom, or I love when you did this, or, the way you're raising your kids. Just, I don't know, everybody can use encouragement.
Yeah. And you're actually raising your own value. Because people look at you like, I need that person in my life. Yeah. I love the support. I love the encouragement that they give me. And, I know some people, they're such encouragers. Like every time you see them, they just have an encouraging word.
So what's the upside of filling somebody's love tank?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're going to get the best out of them. Yeah. Number one, if they feel loved and their tank is full, they're going to work. Their whole countenance is going to work in the way it was designed to work. Okay. So you want to bring the best out of them. And I think, in this day and age, we live in a culture, especially with social media, that there's so much negativity out there and people can just say whatever they want with no accountability, put people down. There's so much hate out there that we need to be the ones that are shining the light, and showing love and be an encouragement to people. Everybody needs encouragement. Yeah. And on some days more than other days. Everybody needs to feel like they belong, that they are loved, that they are valued. You lose nothing by showing love in the way that someone detects love. Yeah. You lose nothing. It's like it adds to your selflessness by putting their interests ahead of your own, cherishing their feelings ahead of your own, showing respect, even when they don't do the most respectable things all the time. I mean, just being willing to keep that close, intimate connection alive. And yeah, we talked about how the feeling of love starts to fade, but showing people when you've been together now a while and remembering am I filling their tank?
Yeah,
or is their tank being full?
Yeah.
Sometimes we get grumpy and moody. It could just be like, if your love language is physical touch, you go up to that person, do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Let me give you a hug. It may be that's all they need is a little hug
to
kind of snap them out of the bad mood.
Yeah. But injection.
Yeah. So I think it's knowing each other and saying that I value you enough, even if it's hard for me to say words of affirmation. I know that you really need that. I'm going to find a way. Yeah. I'm going to intentionalize it. And if you want to keep your relationship together forever and sustain love, because it will add to your feelings of love by filling each other's love tank. You have to intentionalize it. It doesn't come natural. It doesn't come easy. Yeah. We all get tired. We all get grumpy. We all get moody. So it's basically just doing what needs to be done because you want to bring the best out of your partner.
Yeah.
And it's better for your children if mom and dad love each other. If mom and dad are good, that will breed security in your children.
Yeah.
If mom and dad aren't good, that's one of the main things that kids grow up feeling insecure, because mom and dad are always fighting and arguing, or mom and dad don't talk. Like your children, you're modeling what a good relationship is to your children by speaking each other's love language.
Yeah. So couples that you've worked with, and maybe they're kind of at a stalemate, where they're not speaking each other's love language, they're not filling each other's tank. And it's kind of that, well, I try to do this for them, but they don't do it back for me. But do you feel like when somebody truly, genuinely gives of the other person's primary to fill their tank, then that person then will reciprocate, and that relationship sparks again, or, because one is it's kind of like, who's going to go first? Like
right.
you or me, the chicken or the egg, like, well, if I do that for them, what are they going to do for me? But do you find that if I just go ahead and selflessly give in the way that I know you're going to feel filled up, then it will end up coming back my way?
I think it's very natural if you are being given to want to give back, unless you are just very, very selfish.
Yeah.
And and your whole life is all about you and getting and receiving, and you're not willing to give anything back. Yeah. But how's that going to work for you? How's that going to work for you in the long run? So you have to decide what you want, and it's a two-way street, and it takes both. And it's not 50-50. It is 100% of giving to the other. And I think, when you kind of get into that stalemate, a lot of times I'll say, okay, you're going to have to be the more mature one. Yeah. Who's going to be the bigger person right here?
Right.
The more mature one, the stronger one is going to have to reach out to the weaker one. And sometimes you'll do that. And again, depending on the relationship, depending on the couple, there's going to be times where my husband is the stronger one, the more mature one, and I'm less mature. And then there's going to be times where I'm going to be the stronger one and reach out. So I think it's a two-way street. You both have to be willing, again, to intentionalize. We are going to make this relationship work. Yeah. My husband and I decided early on, we are never going to divorce, and we're not going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stay in an unhappy relationship. So we're going to do whatever it takes to be happy and to have peace and live in harmony together. And you keep learning. I think learning each other's personality styles, learning the love languages. There's so many tools to relationship. Yeah. Reading a book together, doing something new together, things that keep that spark alive, which we talked about. Yeah. I think that was a couple weeks ago on our
upside
podcast.
Of love. Yeah. Well, I love these tools. I also love that you talk about that they do change over time and they change per season. I think that's very freeing, to say, you know what, you're right. That used to count in what you're doing. Yeah. I think I've shifted. I think I've changed a little bit, but again, just keeping that communication open and being vulnerable. Like, I have a girlfriend who just gifted me some she would not know unless she knew me very, very well what to gift me, things for my home. And it just, gifts are not my love language, but because I knew that they're her love language, it just makes me feel so endeared to her. And it helps me because I'm not a very good gift giver. My mind kind of goes blank. But when I try my best and I give something and I can be vulnerable, like I'm trying so hard and I hope you like this. And, I think that helps too. And it helps with my husband when I'm vulnerable and say like, I'm trying, I really am trying. Like, how can I?
Yeah. Because like in gift giving, my husband buys me gifts all the time. And sometimes it's stuff that he picks out that it's not really my taste. Yeah. But the fact that he shopped for me, the fact that just his intention behind it, I feel loved. Yeah. Even if you don't like the gift, and just you saying, "Oh, I'm hoping you like," just that makes somebody feel like that is so precious. That is so sweet. Yeah. Just your intention. Forget about the gift. The fact that you wanted to give somebody something is huge.
Yeah, I love it. I love
it.
So
yeah, I think it's a great tool. I think everybody needs to learn them. Get the book. It goes into even more detail. Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages.
All right. Well, let us know in the comments down below what your primary love language is. Let us know what your partner's love language is and how you guys fill each other's buckets. Yeah. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is coming your way. It helps us when you do leave comments and ask questions down below. And make sure you follow Daniele on Instagram and Facebook.